What's up guys, and welcome to this week's segment of TUGGtv. Now in today's episode we are going to be giving you 5 tips on how to increase your tuning stability. Now these tips can be applied to both your guitar and your bass, so let's get it started. Tip number 1. Sanding the nut grooves. Quite often in the entry-level guitars and basses, we've seen that the nut is actually not properly slotted. And when I'm talking about being slotted, I mean the grooves which are made to hold the strings. Leaving aside the factor that these might actually be made of poor plastic, there's every chance that the grooves are not well made and there might be a lot of friction happening in there. So what exactly happens here is, assuming that you have a really big bend, your strings kind of do stretch, and because of the friction at the nut, it kind of delimits itself. Okay, I just meant to say that there's every possibility of the tension changing or the fact that the strings might actually kind of slip. So regarding this particular tip, there are 2 easy fixes to go around this. The first one is taking a bit of sandpaper and kind of just rubbing it in the grooves. So what this does is the fact that it picks on all of those sharper edges what are there in the grooves and makes it smoother. Another approach, and my personal favorite, is actually using your strings. Now until and unless you're somebody who kind of prefers having the extra strings kind of hanging loose on the headstock, you might actually cut your strings down to the required length. So what I usually do is I pick these string lengths which are cut and then kind of use them to actually groove the nut. The method of doing this is pretty similar to how you would use a saw. All you need to do is keep this length of string in the slot and then just move it. This not only ensures the fact that your nut doesn't have any sharp edges, but also makes sure that the groove which is created is exactly to the string gauge what you're using. Tip number 2. Using graphite in your nut. Well, this one is an age-old hack which pretty much most of you guys out there will actually be aware of. So after you guys have slotted the nut, it's always advisable to add a bit of graphite or the pencil shaving into these slots. Now what exactly happens here is that the graphite acts as a lubricant for the strings. Now what this does is that it gives you a bit of ease for the strings to actually move in and out of the nut. This one is one of the most easiest maintenance tips because let's face it, we all have a pencil lying around which we don't use. Tip number 3. Number of rounds around the peg. Now this is an advice which pretty much holds good if you're somebody who's not using locking tuners. It's advised from most of your string companies to actually make sure that you have at least 2 or 3 rounds around the tuning peg of your guitar and bass. So what this does is that it gives you a better hold on the peg and kind of prevents slippages from happening. Tip number 4. Spiral up for the plain strings. Now this advice goes out to all the people who are using guitars which have got the 3x3 configuration on their headstock, also better known as the Gibson configuration. So when it comes to holding its tune, the G string is very notoriously known for losing it whenever you have the 3x3 configuration. So what is usually suggested in this configuration is that the plain strings have to be spiraled up when you're tuning it. So yeah, coming to the actual advice, assuming that this is the tuning peg, whenever you guys add the string, make sure that the winding starts going on top rather than descending down below. To dive a bit into the concept of this, the break angle from the nut kind of reduces and then this does induce a bit of stability on the strings. So yeah, in summary, make sure your strings go up and not down. Tip number 5. Locking tuners. So this is the only advice on this list which is gonna be a bit expensive when compared to the rest. Now coming to locking tuners, these are very similar to your normal tuning pegs with one major difference. Now unlike traditional tuners, these tuning pegs are actually gonna have a roller at the back. Now these rollers are actually used to control a mechanism inside of them which pretty much catches on to the string. So what this does is the fact that it reduces the necessity of having quite a lot of windings on your pegs. And coming to the actual working of it, since you guys don't have a lot of string which is actually around the peg, there is a very less chance of the extra string material being around the peg and kind of hindering with your tuning stability. Since the extra length of string here is almost next to nothing, it pretty much makes sure that it doesn't interfere with your tuning. And with that, we come to the end of our top 5 tuning tips. Now these are not the only tuning tips which are out there. There are quite a few of them. We just wanted to let you guys know which was our favorite. And if you feel there's a tip out there which should have been featured on this list, make sure to hit us up in the comment section. Now for all the first time viewers out there, we are a channel who focuses on a lot of original content, experiments and a few funny videos as well. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified for all of our videos. And with that, this is TUGGtv signing off, and as always, stay safe and stay metal.